Hi, I'm Rick.
And I'm Karina.
And we live in Puerto Peñasco, Sonora, Mexico.
Living the dream every day.
Hey, Gen Max, you just met Karine and Rick, and I am Brighton. If you don't already know me, I'm almost retired in Mexico. These guys also almost retired in Mexico. And we are going to be talking about what life is like here in Puerto Peñasco, Rocky Point, about an hour from the U.S. border. So I had not even heard of Puerto Peñasco, Rocky Point until just a few weeks ago when I was kind of amazed at this whole community that is here. So here it is on a map, so you can kind of see where it is. So it's straight up from La Paz until you can no longer have any more water. So let's hear their story of how they ended up here, and we're going to take a tour of the house, find out if they speak Spanish, all that kind of good stuff that you guys like to know.
We were high school sweethearts, and we went to school together. We grew up together in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Separated ways when she went off to college and lost touch before cell phones and computer age. But I always knew she was my first love and the one for me. So.
I always knew when you, looking back on some of my memories of like my family remembering my high school relationship with Rick, they always said, you always told us that you were going to ride off into the sunset with Rick Bolt. Or whatever your last name is in this video.
And we are having the sunset right now here in Puerto Peñasco. So let's hear the continuation of the story and how these guys ended up here.
We each raised separate families, and then we're going through divorces at the same time, and we're able to get back in touch. And came out here for my 50th birthday, and I had never even heard of the place before here. And fell in love with the place.
We were going through a divorce at the same time, like he said, and so we realized that the connection that we had was just still so special, and it was just exactly like peas and carrots again, we never left off. And so we decided it was in our divorces anyway that we had to sell our houses, and so we just sold our houses, sold pretty much everything we had. We moved to Phoenix together.
Yep.
And we came down here on vacation for his 50th birthday, and then it just claimed our hearts. We loved it. We fell in love with the culture, the community, the people, the feeling. Like it's more than just a town, it's a vibe.
It's a way of life too.
Yeah.
The locals are great people here, and there's a lot of Americans too, so it kind of, is kind of like a tiptoe if you're kind of like worried about being, moving out of the United States. We're only an hour away from the border, a few hours from Phoenix, so it's not like we're, too far away, but yet it's just a whole different life here, and it's amazing, honestly.
It reminds me of when we grew up in Colorado Springs in the 1980s. Like it was a small town, and people rode horses on what's now a highway, and dirt roads, and kids staying out until after dark when the street lights come on, and just the echo of children's laughter. And all you needed was a ball, sometimes a flat ball, and a couple of buddies, and you've all of a sudden got a huge game going on. And that's one of my favorite sounds of this neighborhood. Is we live in an area that is mostly locals, natives of Mexico or natives of Peñasco itself. And I just love the sounds of late night mariachi music, children's laughter, the bounce of a flat soccer ball, and just the laughter and the community, and how everybody just vibe here.
Yeah, we feel part of a community here.
Yes.
That's great. We were looking to buy in Phoenix, and when we were, I've always worked with roofing crews that were from Mexico, and they would always make fun of me for having a 30-year mortgage, and I need to move to Mexico and buy a ranch is what they would say. But, we were looking in Phoenix, and, all we had was a down payment worth of money to work with, and the market was so high at the time. We looked down here and we're like, you know what, we can make that work and work part-time in the United States and live a full life here.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been doing.
Yes.
So when I first spoke with Karina over Zoom, I think is what we did, and she mentioned the story of the 50th birthday going to Mexico. Our story is very similar. We went down to La Paz, a place we'd never heard of, for Kat's birthday. I can't remember which one it was. It was more than 50 though, and that's when we bought a house. So let's hear these guys, where they stayed, and how long it took to find a place to live down here that they could afford.
So we came back a couple months later for her birthday.
Yeah.
And started looking, thinking, what, instead of a down payment, maybe we could pay off and not have a mortgage to worry about, so we started looking then, and then came back again a few months later.
So we came down here. His birthday is Thanksgiving weekend. And so when he turned 50, I wanted to do something really special for him. We've spent a lot of our years together, a lot of years as friends, and I just wanted to do something remarkable for him. And so I had remembered, there's vacation at Rocky Point. They call it Arizona's beach. Let's go check that out. So I started looking online, and we found a beautiful condominium, an Airbnb, and at the Ismeralda on Sandy Beach. Absolutely breathtaking. And so walking into a situation like this beautiful big glass balcony, and you've got this sunset, and we're passionate about sunsets. I'm an artist. I paint sunsets. He's a photographer. He photographs the sunsets. It's just perfect. And so here we are in this live view of what feels like is the world's best painting I've ever had a part of. And I just knew that we belonged here. I knew that we weren't going to be Sandy Beach. We weren't that fancy yet, but give us time. We didn't want a mortgage anymore, And so we drove around town that weekend after his birthday. We drove around town and we looked at a few places. We made contact with real estate, a local broker, I think at that time. And then we came back down 2 months later for my birthday, and we brought his parents because we were house shopping. And we went and looked at all of the developments that they had going on at the time. They're a few years ago, they went up fast and they sold pretty fast. And so we thought, if we don't move on this, we're going to miss our opportunity. Yeah. And so I remember we were holding hands. We were at the swimming pool at our rented apartment, and we were standing there at the swimming pool. We had just made an offer on this house, and we said, okay, do we want them to call in the offer? And we said, okay, we're going to do this. And we held hands and we jumped into the pool to signify, like, regardless of what happens, we're jumping in. We're in this. So we jumped in. Whatever happens, we've got this. As long as we're doing this together, we've got this. And so we jumped in the pool, and that was probably the easiest part of moving here. As long as you do your research and listen to the people that have done the trip before you make those contacts, before you just pack up and move, that'll be a lot smoother. But we didn't know any of that. We just decided, let's jump in the pool and then move to Mexico.
And figure it out then.
We'll figure it out.
Yes, this is a Mexican neighborhood, dirt roads, very, very traditional Mexican area, but it's a brand new development here of, I think, is it four different houses right next to each other. So let's hear more about this neighborhood and also this house.
So we were on our way over to look at this house, and we came to the four-way stop on the dirt road, and in a BMW we got stuck and started spinning our wheels, and I started freaking out. It was about this time at night where the sun was setting, and we were unfamiliar with the neighborhood and unfamiliar with the area and
the country.
with it, and within seconds there were like 4 people running out to help get us and push us and get us unstuck. And I was like, you know what? In the United States, people would have been honking their horns, flipping us off, yelling at us, you know. But here, everybody seemed to just drop everything and help us get out. And, you know, we just felt really safe and, you know, welcomed and, you know, just fell in love with the place, you know. It was really kind of smooth, actually, after that. So this is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in the north central part of Puerto Peñasco. So we're about 3 miles away from Sandy Beach, 3 miles away from Las Conchas and the Mirador, 3 miles from the Malecon. So we've got like a 3-mile pinpoint from just about everywhere. And we're in the north central part of town.
And it's a traditional upper new development, up and coming developer with the modern amenities. And so you hear horror stories about people not having water and not being on the city lines, and they have to truck in the water, and sometimes it's seawater. We don't have any of those problems. We're on city water. We've got, you know, Wi-Fi. We've got the option for home phone, although we haven't put one in. We've got the ability to, and we've just not had any. When we're inside our home, it just doesn't feel like it's different than anywhere else.
Right. It's very homey.
Very homey.
Okay, I know you guys love the numbers, so let's hear about the difference between this place here and what they had in Phoenix, and then what they paid for this.
So we paid. So we each had about $40,000 after we sold our homes in Colorado and after splitting with our divorces. So we had a total of $80,000 all in, and you know that's what our budget was, and you know that's what we were able to find here at this house was $80,000 all in, and you know our home is paid for. We don't have a mortgage. It's great. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, nice fenced yard, nice area, and we love it. We love the fact that we don't have a mortgage payment every month or a rent payment, and it's great. The billing cycles here are like every 6 weeks, and sometimes you just like lose track of time and don't even realize what day of the week or even what month it is sometimes because of, you know, it's great. Well, I love it.
He has a famous saying that's welcome to the land where it's always almost Friday or Friday.
Or Friday. Yep, and it always is.
It's always Friday or almost Friday.
Yep, it totally is.
It's definitely different than the hustle and bustle. But in Phoenix, we had a tiny apartment. They got away with calling it a 1-bedroom because it must have been a closet with a window. Otherwise, it would have been just a straight up studio. It was tiny. We were always just completely on top of each other. Our living room could fit a couch and a TV. But between the dogs and us, we were just on top of each other. No room in the kitchen to cook a meal. It was just definitely a temporary place to lay our heads before we found our permanent house. We couldn't be more thrilled with our decision to move to Mexico. There was always the situation of, well, what are we going to do for money?
Yeah.
So it's, you know,
you
get creative.
Yeah, well, the first year I was working in Denver and still doing the roofing thing. And then on January 1st, you know, everything.
We just went to semi-retired. We made connections, and people needed the services that are within our skill sets and that we offer. And so I used to always joke with my coworkers, you know, hey, all right, if anybody needs me over the weekend, like I'm not available, I'm going to run off to Mexico and teach aqua aerobics on the beach. And that was always my running joke for years in Colorado. And so people would even say, where's Karina? Oh, she must have run off to Mexico and is teaching water aerobics on the beach. And that's literally what I do now. I teach water aerobics on the beach because we don't have a mortgage or rent.
And your first, Bonnie, the lady that you started the aqua aerobics with, had this running date of she knew 586 days and 36 hours or 20 hours or whatever. She knew by the minute how long it's been since she was in the United States, the last time that she went. And she was so proud of her streak. And and I was like, well, it kind of stinks because I'm a full-time Peñasco guy, but I go to Denver to work for, and then I come back and go back and forth and back and forth. And so I was like, I can't wait till I can get a streak going of, I can't remember the last time I was in the United States.
I bet you only miss the snow on days like this, huh?
That's right.
So we're filming this in July, and it is hot out, and it's humid. So definitely it's, obviously they have air conditioning here, so it feels great inside. But I have heard that August is actually the worst month, and that's when a lot of shops close and a lot of people leave for that time period. Same thing happens in La Paz or Cabo, in that kind of like late summer when it starts to get a little bit sticky. That's usually when people have their vacations, because the rest of the year is perfect for living in these places. So a lot of folks from here actually head over to Ensenada, which is where I was just 2 days ago. So I want to know if these guys speak Spanish.
We haven't needed to work as hard on learning Spanish as we anticipated that we would. We thought that we would be completely bilingual by now. Yeah. And there's so many English speakers that embarrassingly we haven't picked up our Spanish. I think I'm getting worse. Am I getting worse?
Probably. I think worse, actually. And my Spanish is like a kindergarten level, like basics.
Order a beer and get my face slapped.
Yep. I know just enough to, get by. I mean, like I said, it's a vacation town, so a lot of people, you can get away with Spanglish or 50-50. We know the basics. I mean, you pick it up after a little while, just by hearing people, the basics. I mean, we know the basics, but when they talk, I lose track because I'm trying to like translate in my head, and they speak so fast, so I get like the first half of the sentence and then try to like piece in what they would be saying maybe. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And
that is very true. A good point is Sonora is actually really known for how fast the dialect is. Yeah. So we might it's the processor up here is not quite as fast as it once was, and so sometimes they're on to the next topic, and I'm like, yo quiero jugo. Like, I'm still stuck at juice, and everybody's already had their after dinner mints.
Yeah, exactly.
But thankfully, the waiter would probably speak English anyway.
So yeah, when I checked into the Sonoran Spa yesterday, thank you, Mary, for setting me up with a condo over there. I was trying my best to speak Spanish, and the staff there was speaking Spanish with me until they got to telling me where the elevator was, which was the El Lavador. And a lavador is like a sink, and so I was a little bit stuck on, lavador, and I was like really lost, but they quickly switched over to English and let me know exactly where I needed to go to get the elevator. So, well, let's get a tip from these guys, as that's always how I like to wrap up my videos, is with a tip for folks who are moving from the United States to Mexico, or from Canada to Mexico too.
So my tip would be, if moving down here from Canada or the United States, would be to put your patient pants on, because there's like this need or this rush or this lifestyle that is not here. But here it's relaxed, slower paced, and if you're bringing anxiety and this upbeat tempo, hurry up and get her done attitude, you're probably not gonna be as happy as you might be a little more frustrated just on how slow things go or work here. But it's, once you get used to it, it's perfect, because you get in the groove. And it's I love a Mexico minute over a New York minute any day of the week.
Any day.
Yeah.
My tip would be to find the Facebook groups, and whatever community that you're thinking of relocating to, reach out to people, put a post that says, what would you have me know before I transport my family and my life there? What do I need to know? We would have really loved to know how to get trash service. We would have liked to know how to get internet. We would have liked to know that our stove would have been gas, and that we needed to contact the gas company to bring the gas. Propane, exactly. We would like to have known just how to get basic services. So join the Facebook groups. There's a wealth of information from people that have been there, done that.
Yeah, because there's no mailboxes, no mail service, so billing cycles, and where do you pay the bill, and when do you pay the bill, and how much is the bill?
Get
It's
to
always
know
good to know.
OXO.
Yep. And if you don't know Spanish, it's probably going to be a difficult way to find out, find out the hard way.
Yes, definitely join those Facebook groups. I've got a whole video about joining Facebook groups just because it is so important. Even if you don't like Facebook, you're going to want to have Facebook if you are living in Mexico, because so much is done. Businesses don't necessarily have websites, but they have Facebook pages, and the Facebook groups are where everyone hangs out, locals and the foreigners. So definitely join those Facebook groups. Just type in like expat in Rocky Point. That's how I found these guys. That's how I found everyone that these videos are about, is I go to those expat Facebook groups and just post there. So post there, look through, search through, see if someone's already asked the question and been answered. People want to share. And speaking of sharing, if you haven't already pushed the share button, make sure you share this video, push the subscribe button, and check out some more videos from other foreigners living in Mexico up here or down here. Hasta luego from Puerto Peñasco. Wish you were here.